What a difference a week makes for the Cleveland Browns. They go into Baltimore in week 4 and punk the Baltimore Ravens 40-25. Freddie Kitchens has a great day. Baker Mayfield has a great day. Jarvis Landry, and on it goes. The Cleveland Browns move to 2-2, and yes, they are the leaders of the AFC North by virtue of their head-to-head win over the Ravens. Kenny Rhoda and I discuss it in detail on this upcoming episode of the Next Man Up podcast. Welcome to the latest edition of Next Man Up, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm Dennis Maniloff. You'll soon be hearing from my co-host, Kenny Rhoda. We will be talking about the Browns' dominant victory over the Baltimore Ravens this afternoon, Sunday afternoon in Baltimore, 40-25. Roadman, so many positives for the Cleveland Browns. For me, it begins with Freddie Kitchens, the head coach, and Baker Mayfield, the quarterback. The reason I point to those two obvious guys is because they have been taking a lot of heat for the Cleveland Browns 1-2 start. Kitchens, questions about whether he was able to handle the head coaching duties and the play calling. Mayfield, uneven through 3 games, didn't look like the Mayfield of 2018. Both of those guys brought their A games today to, M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore.
No, it's Art Modell Trader Stadium. That's what it's called. Art Modell Trader Stadium.
We'll go with that one for the time being. But, Roadman, just give me your overall thoughts about what you saw via the television today as the Browns hammered the Baltimore Ravens.
D-Man, I was scared you-know-what-less after that first drive. I'm thinking to myself, that's what they practiced all week for. They wanted the ball. They won the toss. They took the ball. They scripted the plays, and they were 3 and out on the first drive. And I'm thinking, oh, shoot, here we go again. This is what we've seen through the first 3 weeks. But then somehow, some way, maybe it was the defense rising up and saying, guys, we got your back. They get a stop. They get the ball back, and then boom, the offense starts to click, and Freddie Kitchens starts calling a good game, and it felt similar, not all the way back, but similar to last year when there was less pressure on Freddie as the interim play caller, offensive coordinator, and Baker Mayfield got into a groove. D-Man, they deserved the blame through the first 3 games. They were not good as a tandem. Freddie as a head coach / offensive coordinator, and Baker Mayfield as the quarterback of this football team. But today, as much grief as we gave them, you've got to give them credit today for what they were able to do. I thought Freddie Kitchens called a great game mixing the pass and the run. To me, 30 passes is the ideal number for Baker Mayfield. If they can stick around 30 passes, which means they're running the football with Chubba Wubba Hub, as Jimmy Donovan likes to call him, I love that. And then what happens off the run? Play action, and it opens up the passing game. So I thought those two in tandem, as well as that offense and the offensive line, played much better today, did a great job of putting 40 on the so-called greatest team in the AFC North since the division was created many years ago, and with the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL through 3 games this year, playing JV teams in Arizona and in Miami, and an average at best defense with Kansas City. The game today, to me, exposed the Ravens for what they are, and that's a one-trick pony, in my opinion, and that's a running quarterback. Force him to throw, he can't beat you, and that's Lamar Jackson. So the defense, Steve Wilks, hats off to them. The offense, the special teams, an all-around good game today. And the Browns, I don't want to say saved their season, but it was a must-win, and they came through, and now they're tied for first place with the Ravens.
I'll say it, Roadman. I'll say they saved the season if they wanted to accomplish the goals of 2019. Because to me, if you go 1-3, the doubt creeps in. Even if you try to put up a front and say, we're all for one for all, and let you guys throw us in the trash can, I think there would be some doubt that it would have crept in with this team at 1-3. They'd be looking up at a 3-1 Ravens team and think, you know what, the Ravens could very well run away with this AFC North, because the Ravens are looking at the same Bengals and Steelers that the Browns would be. And with the next 3 opponents coming up, you'd be saying to yourself, okay, when's the next victory coming? And by the time you rescued the season with the softer second half, it would probably be too late. So I think they did save their season today. And I think that it's not overstating the case how important one victory was, because you go from 1-3 potentially to now 2-2, and you are leading the division by virtue of the head-to-head victory over the Ravens. I do want, before we get back into the game minutia, I'm so glad you brought up the opening possessions of each team, but I thought it was important what you said about the publicity that was surrounding the Ravens entering this game. And I found it, I guess, ironic, because in the offseason, all we heard about was how great the Browns were going to be. And you knew that the Ravens were doing a slow burn in the offseason wherever their players were, as part of their preparation for the training camp. You knew they were doing a slow burn because they're going, well, wait a minute. We're hearing all this stuff about the Browns and all their talent, and yet we're the defending division champs. So they wanted desperately to use that to fuel them. The problem is there were 3 games between the off season, if you will, and the training camp and their first meeting with the Browns, because in that time period, the Browns weren't very good and the Ravens were good. So all of a sudden, all the hype was with the Ravens. So I don't think the nobody gives us a chance worked out quite well for the Ravens, because all of a sudden, wait a minute, you guys are the ones that everybody's talking about. We're hearing about Lamar as a passer, and Ingram and Thomas and all those guys. So I bet you the Browns, of all teams, the team that was hyped to the heavens in the offseason, I'll bet you they were the ones who said, you know what, we're sick of hearing about how great the Ravens are. And they turn around and use that today. But, phenomenal job by the Browns from stem to stern, virtually stem to stern, because as you pointed out, the 3 and out to open the game seemingly spells trouble for the visitor, especially against a team that's feeling it. But here is one reason why I give Steve Wilks one of my game balls. Defensive coordinator for the Browns. He gets, the Browns have to punt it away, and the Ravens have it 1st and 10 at the 35, and Wilks' undermanned defense says, you're going to go 2-yard rush by Ingram, sack for -8 by Olivier Vernon, and what do we got here? An 8-yard run by Ingram, and Ravens have to punt. Who knows what the game looks like if the Ravens get that ball after the Browns 3 and out and go right down the field and score. So tremendous job by Steve Wilks' defense right there as a at the start of the game to force a punt from the Ravens.
And D-Man, let's really give them credit, even though they lost last week with the injuries. Kirksey gets hurt last week. You start without 4 starters in the secondary last week. Today, without 3 starters in Kirksey today. That secondary played very, very well. And again, some of that has to do with Lamar Jackson not being a good passing quarterback, right? But the defense is definitely the strength of this team right now. And I can't wait to see what they're like when they get Greedy Williams back and Denzel Ward back in that secondary. Myles Garrett only had 1 tackle today, but like on offense, they did a great job, or their focus, the Ravens, was to make sure to not let Myles Garrett beat them on the defensive side, and other guys stepped up. They still had 4 sacks. On the offensive side, OBJ double-teamed. They were grabbing him. They were, choke holding him on the ground and ripping his earring out of his ear or whatever. I don't know. He lost an earring. Did he lose his watch too? I don't know. But they were trying to make somebody else on that offense beat him. And Chubb did, and Landry did before he got hurt with the concussion or whatever. And how about a guy named Ricky Seals-Jones? This sounds like, he's got a number one hit on the top 40 chart. And with a bullet moving to the top, it's Ricky Seals-Jones, and here comes a touchdown. So, I loved what I saw today. This is what we thought we were going to see from the get-go. It took 4 regular season games to act as preseason games for the Browns to get the offense going with Baker as well as Freddie calling the plays.
Yeah, during the show prep, I was talking to our producer, director, coordinator extraordinaire, Chase Smith, and I said, if I would have told you that Myles Garrett would be relatively quiet or contained at least by double teams and chips, and that OBJ would catch 2 passes for 20 yards, you probably would have told me that's not a prescription for winning for the Cleveland Browns on the road in Baltimore. Well, guess what? Both of those things happened, and the Browns won going away. And let's get this out of the way right here and now. It was 40-18. It wasn't 40-25. That was a classic garbage time touchdown at the end. So in my mind, I'm looking at that final score as 40-18. But the fact that you didn't need a monster game from Myles Garrett or Odell Beckham Jr., and you still punked the Ravens in their place, that shows so much about this team, because we look over the years at the NFL, and the best teams, and I'm thinking of the platinum standard that is the New England Patriots, the best teams win with good systems and a lot of plug and play. Of course, you have to have stars in certain areas. Of course, the Patriots need the best quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. I'm not saying otherwise. I'm not saying the Patriots system with Brian Hoyer or Matt Castle is going to take you to glory. But if you have a few key pieces in place, such as notably the quarterback, you can win in the league if your systems are good and if your coaching is good. And I point today to 2 guys in particular. The guy you said, Ricky Seals-Jones, and also on the defensive side, Jermaine Whitehead. Jermaine Whitehead subbing at safety. These are 2 guys who delivered for you, who I'm sure the Ravens didn't necessarily think were guys that they were going to have to worry about. But Whitehead plays a terrific game on the defensive side. I think he had 7 solo tackles, 8 overall. But the key was he forced that fumble on Mark Ingram when the Ravens were driving inside the 30 of the Browns. First Ravens turnover of the year, and the Browns turn around and cash that into a touchdown. So Whitehead, to me, has the defensive play of the game when he tag teams with Joe Schobert on that tackle and jars the ball loose. And then on the other side, as you mentioned, Ricky Seals-Jones, a tight end in a wide receiver's body. The guy's 6'5", about 240, and he's got 3 catches for 80-some yards. He had the 59-yard catch. He had the touchdown scraping across the middle.
Yep.
And don't forget the back shoulder throw from Mayfield on a critical 3rd down on the right sideline. So when you have a team, when you have systems that are being put in place that can win, you see complementary pieces rise to the occasion. And that's why I'm that much more encouraged by what I saw from the Browns today, because it wasn't just the big names. Yes, the big names came to play in Mayfield and Chubb and Landry, but you didn't have to get monster games from all your stars. You had complementary pieces who supported the stars, and that's why you won the game.
D-Man, I've often been hard on Joe Schobert for accumulating a lot of tackles but not making an impact. Well, today he accumulated a lot of tackles and made an impact. 17 total tackles, 9 solos. He had 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and a quarterback hit. So he made some plays that made a difference in the game, not just statistical plays to add to his season total. And then you got my guy coming back from injury, Demarius, Mr. Cicerone Randall, the quarterback of that secondary. coming up big today as he had a sack and a tackle for a loss, a quarterback hit, did a nice job in the secondary. And then Larry Obi-Wan Kenobi had a sack today too. So you got, like you said, contributions. Oh, Mac Wilson, the rookie, started. You know what? If we're not talking about him, sometimes that's a good thing because that means he didn't make any bad plays, right, where he was singled out. I thought they were going to try and expose him. They didn't. He played well today. He had a pass defense and 7 tackles. So this defense, like I said earlier, ahead of the offense, even with the injuries. And to me, the identity of this team is this defense right now. And I think we saw today what this offense has to be. It has to be Nick Chubb first and the passing game coming around that.
Yeah, speaking of Nick Chubb, I mean, just a ridiculously good game for Chubba Hubba Wubba. I want to take you, Kenny Rhoda, to early middle fourth quarter, about 9 and change to go. The Ravens have just gone 75 yards in 14 plays and 6:02 to pull within 24-18. Browns get the kickoff, don't return it very far, and then they have a procedure penalty. So we're sitting at the Browns are sitting 1st and 15 at their own 12. What are you thinking at that point in terms of the opening play call of that drive? Because I'll tell you what, for me, honestly, I was thinking they're probably going to play action pass because Freddie's going to want to answer what the Ravens just did. And instead, they do the toss sweep, essentially a student body right to Nick Chubb. They get the pulls from Treader and Cush, and then a great seal from Demetrius Harris. And Chubb just blows through the hole and untouched for 88 yards. I had him catching the pitch at the 5. So he essentially ran with the ball for 95 yards. But my question to you, Roadman, were you expecting a running play there? Or, and then beyond that, what did you think of the play?
Man, there's no way to prove this. I was at Jersey Sports Bar and Grill in Canton with the Stark County Browns backers watching the game, doing trivia, right? I see the momentum switching right there. The crowd's going ballistic. And I look at where they're at. And for some reason, I thought back to the long touchdown run last year by Chubb. Now, I didn't call my shot on Twitter or anything like that, but it did pop into my head. And then after the game, I'm listening post-game to Cush, who said that was a play they really loved in practice this week. They must have saw something on film, and let's give Freddie Kitchens or whoever maybe that saw that on film that said, all right, let's go with the pitch. And Chubba Wubba Hubba just took it and one cut, didn't have to get to the – they took away the outside. They were more worried about him turning the corner. He said, I don't need the outside. I don't need the corner. He shot right up the middle where that hole was. I don't know if he was touched, D-man. I don't think he was. And once he gets ahead of steam like that, ain't nobody going to catch Chubba Wubba Hubba. And he takes it 88 yards. I was hoping they'd run. That flashed into my mind, the 90-yarder, 91 or whatever it was from last year. I wasn't expecting it, but I was maybe hoping for something like that. And I just wanted to get good field position because I didn't want them to take a chance to throw, get a sack, strip fumble right there. I was hoping they'd run. They did. I didn't expect them to score on one play, though.
Yeah, and the reason I asked you the question, Roadman, is because I want to give credit when, I was willing and able to criticize Freddie Kitchens for some of his play calls in the first 3 games of the year. But I'm certainly going to give him credit for today. And that was one example, because if I'm the OC, or if I'm, God forbid, calling the plays for the Cleveland Browns, I'm sitting there after they just scored and I want to get a chunk back via the air. It's not that I don't like Chubb. It's just that I feel like I've got to throw the ball there. And to show the patience that Kitchens did on that first down, especially and some would say, well, once the illegal procedure occurred or the false start and we became 1st and 15, well, then you're going to run it. I still didn't feel that way. I still felt like they were going to try to get some of it back on first down via the air. And so I credit Kitchens for having the patience to stick, because it's easy to run when you're salting away something or the game is long over. It's another thing when you're running on first down on the road, you're only leading by 6, you're deep in your own territory, and the other team has just scored. So credit Kitchens for that play call. And then, as you said, the execution was exquisite. You had Treader and Cush pulling and sealing on the outside, and then Harris comes in on the inside for the pin down. It gave Chubb the opening he needed, and then Chubb just goes to another gear in a blink. He's got to be one of those guys, Roadman, if you're a defensive player and you haven't seen him, and by the way, the Ravens had seen him, some of their players had seen him because they played him before.
Right.
But I can imagine if you haven't seen him and you watch him on whatever it is, DVR, film, tape, whatever the term is, you probably cannot appreciate how fast he is, because he does have sort of a thick build to him and he doesn't look like a burner. But when you get him out there and he's running, he just runs away from guys. I mean, he hit the second level and he ran away from 3 Ravens who I'm sure thought they could catch him.
I agree with you, D-Man. I like the fact that he was featured. They threw to him 3 times as well. I like the overall run game, 29 times. They ran it 193 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground against what was supposed to be the best run defense in the NFL. They shredded that. Baker, hopefully he gets his mojo back here with a 20 for 30 game, high percentage of completion, as well as throwing it down the field. How about a 66-yarder, I think, to Jarvis Landry, a 59-yarder to Ricky Seals-Jones, an 88-yard run from Nick Chubb. So big plays, big chunk yardage plays that keeps the defense honest. Now you got to maybe lay off a little bit so you don't get beat deep. I mean, fantasy-wise, if you had Chubb, I had him for 38 points without the bonus points for the 88 yards on the touchdown run.
Everything comes back to fantasy, doesn't it?
24 points for Jarvis Landry. And if he doesn't lose his balance 3 times on the same play, he takes that to the house. The only thing I'll say about Freddie, 2 things that I got to get my 2 questions in, right? 2 question marks. The opening series, play calls there. Maybe it was execution or lack thereof, but the reverse pass with Jarvis Landry at near the
triple
goal.
Reverse?
Yeah, OBJ throwing it, stepping up in the pocket like he's a quarterback. I thought that was pass interference. I might have challenged that because of where the interference occurred inside the 5. So that's one thing, with him I think has to get better, and that's because he's a new head coach. And the other thing, too, they got to work on, D-Man. 2 games in a row, they had a 1st and goal inside the 10 and didn't score a touchdown. So that's something they've got to get ironed out inside the 10-yard line on 1st and goal.
I agree, and I wasn't so much questioning Kitchens' play calls on that 1st and goal package. I thought they just failed to execute more so than the disappointment that I felt on the Rams series at the end of the game. But I want to go to OBJ, Roadman, and it was an interesting afternoon to say the least. 2 catches for 20 yards. He's involved in some dust-ups. Certainly the Humphreys dust-up on the ground. The Humphrey dust-up on the ground where Humphrey chokes him. And, yes.
Ric Flair would have been proud of that. Woo!
I mean,
he would have been proud of that. And how that's not a penalty is beyond me. How they don't see that. He should get fined for that, though. I'm sorry, right, man. That was total BS. The Browns got screwed on about 3 calls today. I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's right. And the Ravens claim that Odell threw a punch and he should have been ejected. I read a story where Humphrey apologized to Odell after the game for the choking, and that's not who I am and all that. But here's the thing. I gave Odell Beckham Jr. one of my game balls, and there were many to give, but I gave him one despite the 2 for 20, and I said it on the show, on the WTAM postgame show, and I got some people saying, oh, you're just giving him a game ball because he's OBJ. Yeah, I am, and here's why. I'm giving him the game ball because he's OBJ, because his name and his reputation and his skills, I believe, were in the heads of the Ravens defensive personnel, specifically their DBs. I think they became consumed with Odell Beckham Jr. and thereby allowed opportunities for, I don't know, Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is look at the 59-yard pass from Mayfield to Jones, which is a huge play in the game, as one point of evidence to what I'm saying, because you watch that play, they showed the replay from the other end zone, the opposite end zone, looking toward the Browns line of scrimmage, and you saw Beckham check up on a little short route to the right, and the guy who was supposed to be with Seals-Jones, he goes down to double cover Beckham. Meanwhile, Seals-Jones keeps running unabated right down the seam, and Mayfield hits him, and there's your 59-yard gain. The reason Seals-Jones was wide open was because of a double team on Beckham. So, in my opinion, and it wasn't just that play. He was occupying so much of the Ravens' thought process that it opened up the field for other guys. The question that I have for you, though, Roadman, is how many more of these games is Odell Beckham Jr. going to be willing to deal with, even in victories? We know all he wants to win. All he wants to do is win. Understand it. I understand that. But how many more times is he going to be okay with being a decoy?
Great question. I wish I had the answer for you there, D-Man. The best I can offer to you at this time is if they're winning, it won't be as big of a deal. If they start losing and he's not getting the catches, because he had 7 targets today. I think he caught 2 balls, right? But was interfered with a couple of times. Double team. So he still made an impact today. You're right. But as long as they're winning and Jarvis, his buddy, maybe is getting to benefit from it, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But if he's not catching passes and they start losing and Jarvis isn't, then it could be an issue. So I didn't get to hear him post game. I'm looking forward to hearing that after we're done reading the transcript to see what I'm hoping he said. Hey, it's a win. That's all that matters. I don't care how many balls I catch as long as we win. I'm hoping that's what I read or hear. But I think it's something to keep an eye on because of his past history.
Yeah. And I'm sure that he said what you think he said. Otherwise, we would have heard about it by now. You know, Beckham would have said, it would have gotten on Twitter, I need the ball more. But he wants to win. He said he wants to win. And this was a classic example of a guy contributing without touching the ball. But is Beckham going to be willing to be patient? I still want them, though. You know, speaking of end zone or first and goal packages, I still want them to target Beckham in the end zone some way, somehow. Run him in motion, you know, even if it's every play, run him in motion to get him loose along the goal line on a drag route or something. But eventually you've got to throw the ball in the direction of Odell Beckham Jr. in the end zone.
Totally agree, D-Man. We mentioned it last week. I'll mention it again. Go back and steal the Bill Walsh, Jerry Rice rub play off the hip of the tight end. Bring him in motion from the left, motion him from left to right, roll that way and throw that way. And then the next time you run the same play and then that tight end sneaks out over the middle, you got a touchdown there. It's a copycat league. Go steal something that worked for the greatest receiver in the history of the game.
Roadman, I look as I'm looking at the drive chart. I was mentioning this to Chase in the show prep. An amazing possession for the Cleveland Browns, only resulted in 3 points, but it was amazing because it was a 10-play, 81-yard possession that lasted just 1 minute and 47 seconds. And it resulted in the Austin Seibert, by the way, off to a sizzling start to the year.
Egg on our face, crow for dinner tonight for questioning why they drafted him. I had him cut after the first week, and he hadn't missed a kick yet, with the exception of the extra point. So perfect on field goals, 1 extra point in 4 games.
Yeah, Austin the kicker looks fantastic out of the gate. I certainly hope I'm not jinxing him, but
nice job, you effing kicker.
The Browns go. I mean, it truly was an amazing possession because you just don't see 10 plays and 81 yards in a minute 47.
Right.
And it does result in the short field goal, and they can't cash it in. 1st and goal at the 7, Mayfield incomplete to Hilliard. 2nd and goal at the 7, Mayfield scramble up the middle. I want to say that was a quarterback draw, but the Ravens closed quickly. He may say it wasn't. It looked to me like he had every intention of running. 3rd and goal at the 6, incomplete over the middle to Ratley, and then they kicked the 24-yard field goal. But the reason I said it was an amazing drive is I loved the clock management. I loved how patient Kitchens and Mayfield were. It wasn't like a panic situation. They moved the ball down the field without much, many hitches or stumbles or whatever it is. And that's the kind of clock management that you've got to have if you're going to win games. That end of the half 2-minute drill, get some points, even if it's only 3. And I thought Kitchens and Mayfield were on their games when they needed to be at the end of that half to get the 3 points, get into the intermission up 10-7. So it was a drive or a possession that might get glossed over in the grand scheme, but I thought it was a very important one.
What a difference a week makes, huh, D-Man? A week ago, we're wondering if Freddie's overwhelmed because he was through the first 3 weeks. How would he handle the week of practice? How would his team respond to him? Check, and check. Yes, and yes. They handled it very, very well. Arguably, maybe saved their season 2-2. They go to San Francisco on Monday Night Football feeling a lot better about themselves. Hopefully they'll get healthier for the Monday night affair. Don't know when Greedy and Denzel will be back. Hopefully Jarvis Landry is able to go with that extra day off in concussion protocol, possibly. We don't know for sure. So this team now can just take a deep breath, exhale like that, and start playing football, not worrying about all the white noise, extracurriculars, and all that other crap.
And Roadman, you had mentioned about how you want to see Mayfield around the 30 pass attempt mark. Of course, he was 20 of 30 for 342. The touchdown and 1 pick. The pick wasn't his fault,
right?
In my opinion. I think Landry just cut the route short, and Mayfield put the ball where he expected Landry to be. I don't want to dog Landry because he had a monster game, but on that particular play, I thought he needed to finish the route. So did Trent Green, the analyst on CBS. But Landry has a monster game. We hope he's well soon after the concussion.
Right.
But you talked about the target, the 30 pass target with Mayfield, and he was 20 of 30. And then you add Beckham's throw, 20 of 31. And on the rushing side, Chubb with 20 carries, Hilliard with 6, and Mayfield 3 for 1 yard. So it goes down in the books as 29. It's essentially 26. But that's a really nice balance for a road game against a team where it would have been easy to panic and just want to throw the ball all over the lot. They stay true to the run game. You get 26 carries in earnest, meaning from your running backs, and 31 passes. That's a heck of a balance to be able to achieve in that situation.
If you're a coach, you're loving that, right? I mean, if you can go 50-50 and not the defense has to prepare for both and not know what you're going to call, and you're effective doing it, that's what you want. That's where great offenses are born, with a 50-50, 55-45, 60-40 tops, in that area, even though it's more of a passing league now. But if the Browns can do that, and again, let's give credit to the offensive line. And I want to one more time give credit to the defense, because when they went Marty Schottenheimer on that final drive with the Ravens and allowed them to march down the field, prior to that, Lamar Jackson was under 200 yards passing. So they put a whooping on Lamar Jackson today, pressuring him and exposing him. If you noticed, when things got tight, when things got bad, what did he do? He tried to run. That's his crutch. That's his fallback, and that's what he is best at. And that's why I still think the Browns will win this division, and I'll take Baker over Lamar Jackson, 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, Roadman, and I'll wrap it up by saying this. What a difference 1 week makes. That's the nature of the NFL. Because there is a finite number of games, because there is only, because the number is just 16 and not 162 or 82.
Right.
Your season can turn on one game, and every one has so much importance. As we said at the top of the show, the difference between 2-2 and 1-3 is ginormous in and of itself. And you add to that the difference between 2-2 having beaten the Ravens for the, where the Browns are concerned, as opposed to 1-3 having lost to the Ravens. If you go 1-3 with a loss to the Ravens are 3-1. They've got to win over you in their pockets. They're thinking they're going to run away with the AFC North because they're looking at the Steelers and the Bengals just like you are as 4 victories. Yep. So the ability of the Browns to stop the bleeding, win this game, and not only win it, but win it decisively, get contributions from all over the place, have an undermanned defense that showed up again under the coordination of Steve Wilks, have Freddie Kitchens dust off the criticism, stay firm, do what he does, be creative, but also common sense, with his play calling, have Baker Mayfield block out the noise, or maybe not.
Yeah, maybe use it.
I think, you know what? And that's fine. I actually want Baker Mayfield to be driven by the slightest slight. I'd rather have him grinding on something than not, because apparently this is what drives Mayfield. When he thinks somebody's dogging him or somebody actually does dog him, what does he do? He gives you a great performance. So go ahead, continue to pile on Mayfield anywhere out there, or if Mayfield has to create some villain, because I think that brings out the best in Mayfield. The underdog mentality, that's what he thrives under.
He performs better that way for whatever reason. Maybe it's what he's known his entire life. So thank you, Sexy Rexy, for saying what you said on ESPN. Did you see him today wearing the brown and orange colors on the set and everything today? So hopefully, hey, Colin Cowherd, keep it up. Sexy Rexy, keep it up. Antonio Brown, keep it up. You got nothing else to do. So, if that makes him play better, I'm all for that, because he went out today and he got himself back in the flow of that offense, and I think he got his confidence back, which is huge for this football team.
Well, thanks, Roadman. That'll do it for this episode.
No Indians talk? They lost 5 straight. You don't want to talk about the collapse down the stretch of the Indians?
Another show. That's okay. Another show for another time. I think we need to dive into the Indians post-mortem, but right now it's, to me, it's all Browns all the time after what they did today.
Fair enough, D-Man.
We'll get to the Indians. We'll isolate them in the coming days and just see, try to take a step back on what that season actually means and what they need to do going forward.
The Roadman's just a salty Steelers fan. He's looking to piss in our parade here.
Come on now. See, you got to bring that up. The Steelers suck. I'm a realistic Steelers fan. They suck right now. Their secondary sucks. Mason Rudolph ain't the answer. Giving up your first round draft pick next year, what might be in the top 5 when you're looking for a future quarterback. Stupid. Fire Tomlin. Fire Colbert. They suck right now. There's the Steeler fan in me.
There's your walk-off. There's the walk-off.
Bye, mic drop.
Thanks a lot, Roadman, and it's been fun. The latest episode of Next Man Up on the Press Play Podcast Network, where we reviewed the phenomenal victory by the Cleveland Browns, 40-25 over the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore on Sunday, September 29th.